chat about substitutes and specifically classroom behavior when you have a substitute in your classroom. Hi, I'm Amy Murray from Teaching Exceptional Kinders, and today I'd like to chat about what happens when your class misbehaves for the substitute. What do you do? I'd love to hear before I get too far into it, just drop down in the comments, what do you do? How do you handle it if there's a problem when you're out of the classroom? Now, I don't mean one specific student, because I would address that with that specific student or a couple, but the whole class. Let's say the sub leaves a note class is out of control. What do you do? Okay, so I have quite a few thoughts on this, but I'll try to keep this short. For starters, if you have individual students, my rule was always if your name gets written down for a substitute, there'll be a consequence of some kind. Maybe we have to tell mom and dad that you misbehaved for the substitute. Maybe the substitute says you were too chatty, and so we have a talk about that. Maybe, you know what I mean? You kind of have to take that as it comes. If there was a big problem, then that person may get a referral to the principal, if they got into a physical fight with somebody or that kind of thing. But if it was just typical classroom behavior, we would deal with it. We'd let mom and dad know, or there'd be a classroom consequence. But when the whole class is written, class was really out of control. Okay, I have a couple of thoughts here. Thought one is, their day is different. And I had years where they were sometimes totally out of control for me on a good day. It happens. Kids are kids. And depending on what the day was like while you were gone, you're not there. You can't control it. Here's the next part. You weren't there. So you don't know what happened and how the sub handled it versus how you would have handled something. Right? So let's say everybody's talking and you have some callbacks that you would do, or if you noticed everybody was getting too chatty, you would stop and do a brain break, or you would go take them for a walk, or whatever strategy you might use if you were in the classroom. But the substitute doesn't necessarily have the same classroom management toolkit and the same ideas that you would have. Even if you leave detailed notes to do it, it doesn't mean they're going to do it. And so then if you don't do those things, behavior starts to spiral. Well, you weren't there to try to take care of it. So then how are you going to assess a consequence? Let's say, especially if it was on a Friday and you go back on a Monday, how can you assess a consequence after the weekend? What is that? There's a divide there. I understand that we as adults can say you misbehaved Friday, so Monday, here's your consequence. But 5-year-olds, they've lived a lifetime since Friday in your classroom. I mean, my own 5-year-old, we went to the circus Friday night after school. Saturday morning, they had a dentist appointment. Yeah, on a Saturday, but anyway. And then Sunday, we had church. We had 2 egg hunts. And then, literally last night, she goes, Mom, it feels like so long since I was at school. And it was only 2 days. So they are not still thinking about Friday. So then you bring them back to school and you're like, you misbehaved for the sub on Friday. You're just dredging up misbehavior and probably, in my experience, maybe asking for more because you've told them that they knew how to misbehave and you're inviting them to misbehave for you now instead. I just think that when kids misbehave for a sub, we need to look at the entire picture. And yeah, there are times that I've come back and my classroom is a hot mess and there were, things everywhere. And I knew that the kids misbehaved because, a teammate had told me, listen, they were super loud and they wouldn't listen to her. That's different. Then we go back in and I don't clean up. We spend the time cleaning up together and then going over, our class as a community. We need to take care of each other. We listen to the adult who's in charge and all of that. And then we would address what the problem is. But if you come back and it's simply a note from the substitute without a lot of details, my biggest suggestion to you, and you probably don't want to hear it, is let it go, like Elsa. Because if you bring it back up, you may just be asking for more trouble. If this is an issue every single time you're out of the classroom and they misbehave for a substitute, then yeah, you need to address it, and you probably need to come up with a plan that you can leave with the substitute that can help encourage positive behavior while you're gone. I used to leave these cute little behavior puzzles. You could leave something more complicated if you wanted. You could tell the substitute, just keep a tally of every time they're working quietly, and if they get to 5, here's a pack of stickers, give them a sticker. Like something to incentivize good behavior for a substitute if it becomes a problem. Will that work? Maybe, but it's definitely worth a try in order to get more positive behavior so you don't have to keep coming back to negative reports from substitutes, or you don't want to be the classroom. I was at one year where a sub just doesn't want to come in because the kids are unruly. It happens, you get mixes of kids who just are tough, and if you're barely keeping them in line when you're there, it's going to be hard for a substitute to take over. So I think sometimes when we want to come back to school upset after a substitute, we need to push pause, take a step back, and either pull an Elsa and let it go, or think, okay, how can we set them up for success in the future? Because right now, punishing them isn't necessarily going to be an effective consequence. Now, all of that with the caveat that, yes, if individual students' names are written down or there's detailed notes or, all the things they chatted about earlier, yeah, you're going to have to address those types of things. But if it's just general, they misbehaved, you don't necessarily know what that looks like, sounded like, what it was. So you might say something like, hey, how do you think it went for the substitute at morning meeting? And see what the kids think. They're usually pretty honest with you, especially in kindergarten. And you can start a dialogue and a discussion that way. But I'm telling you, taking away recess time or anything punitive after the fact, especially on Friday to a following week, I'm not sure it's going to have the effect that you want it to have. Now, going back to the basics and practicing, hey, remember, this is how we line up. We're going to practice till we get it right. This is how we raise our hand to get somebody's attention. This is how we sit quietly when we're reading a story, and practicing those expectations by all means. You can go a little classroom reset boot camp of your classroom rules and expectations. Absolutely. But punishments, taking away recess, making them write the classroom rules, I'm not sure that always gets you the desired behavior. I'd love to hear what you think. Drop it down in the comments below, and be sure to follow along, like and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos about classroom management and behavior, especially the one about using behavior puzzles with substitutes. So that will be linked below. All right, until next time, have an exceptional day.